Right now, I just gave you the reading transmission for the common four-armed Chinesic practice known as Dodun Kadyabma, practice that benefits beings pervasively. So this is the practice of the great compassionate Bodhisattva, Chinesic. And also one does this as one's own personal practice. And in general, in the Mahayana path, the development of loving kindness and compassion is the very essence of the Buddha's teaching. So for this reason, I did that reading for you, and this is normally what I do to establish dharmic connection, and you should also therefore join with sincere aspiration or likewise aspiration. So today the main topic that I'm going to teach on is on loving kindness and compassion. Because these two people here in front, that even though I don't know their names, but they had asked me to give teaching. And while I do not myself have fulfilled the necessary learning and contemplation and meditation, not have reached the full level of it, and nevertheless, if out of sincerity of heart I teach, I think it will be of some benefit. It is important for all of us to generate loving kindness and compassion. That is the altruistic heart of bodhicitta. Because in the absence of loving kindness and compassion, for that matter, bodhicitta, then the very heart or the root of the teaching or the practice is missing. So that we will have missed out on the very heart and the root of the teaching. As such, in all circumstances, whether it's during the time of learning or it's in the time of reflection or practice, that we should always have it all joined by bodhicitta. For example, all virtuous activities done in the absence of bodhicitta is said to be like planting of so-called chushing or water trees, banana-like trees, where they bear the fruit once and then it's exhausted. And so, in this way, the virtue that results in the achievement of human realms or that of Deva realms, for that matter even the realization of the Shravakas and Prayateka Buddhas, and whatever realization is attained as a result of virtuous action is not ultimate, is subject to exhaustion. And whereas any virtuous activity that is done joined by or in the spirit of bodhicitta, then this is said to be like pasam jishing or wish-fulfilling tree, where it is said the tree continuously gives fruit and continuously there's increase of fruits. The more it gives fruits, the more fruit increase. Anyway, a wish-fulfilling tree. And so all virtuous activities joined with the bodhicitta is not subject to exhaustion, but in fact that continuously flourishing and increasing and towards the realization of complete liberation. The essence of all the teachings of the Buddha actually is in a concise form is presented through the essence of loving kindness, compassion, or bodhicitta, and emptiness. That also, what is important to be borne in mind is that it must not be one-sided approach, emptiness alone approach, or bodhicitta alone approach, and there must be essentially the unified or combined approach to the application of bodhicitta and the view of emptiness. For example, a bird cannot fly with just one wing. So if one of the wings, be it to the right or the left, one of the wings is not there, the bird cannot take off. Just simply, the bird has to have two wings to be able to fly. So in that same way, emptiness without bodhicitta, or bodhicitta without emptiness is not going to result into Buddhahood or the realization of the state of ultimate omniscience. Along the same line, the pinnacle of all the vehicles and supreme among all the vehicles, that of the Vajrayana methods, even in that case the Vajrayana methods must be joined by emptiness and bodhicitta. Particularly the role of bodhicitta is extremely important. And in other words, if one practices the Vajrayana deity visualization, development stages and fulfillment stages of visualization of deity, and in the absence of the joined by the view of emptiness and bodhicitta, that this will not serve the purpose towards experience of liberation. In general, like in the case of visualization or the generation phases of or fulfillment phases of practice, such as working on yoga of subtle energies or deity visualizations, this is present in other spiritual tradition also. But in the Buddhist tradition, what makes these practices, methods exceptionally profound is when they are joined by the understanding and the view of emptiness and the application of bodhicitta that goes with it, because that can bring about the realization of ultimate liberation, that is Buddhahood. So in essence, in applying the practice of the Dharma, it is important that the practice is complete as far as the beginning or the aspiration aspect is concerned, as far as the main body of the practice, and the conclusion, or sort of the dedication aspect of it. So in this way, what makes it a complete practice. In the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, that one should focus on learning, reflection and practice, meditation. And that also, the purpose of learning and reflection primarily being to be able to apply them into practice. So the principal among them is practice of meditation. While there are numerous different aspects of meditation, primarily it falls into the two classification of SHINAY practice of meditation of calm abiding and LHAGTONG practice of meditation of great insight. And now, when doing the SHINAY and LHAGTONG practice of meditation also, it is extremely important that one does it with the proper aspiration, and that is aspiration of bodhicitta, that it should be joined by bodhicitta aspiration. It is not sufficient that in the name of doing meditation that one's body is straight and the hands are in the meditation posture with the eyes closed, and yet bodhicitta is absent and not sufficient. For instance, there is that animal, what is it called? It's a groundhog, and it is said that even groundhog stays inside under the sort of dugout hole underground for whole of a winter, and yet that doesn't help because there is no bodhicitta taking place. So in this way, the practice of meditation, again in order that it leads towards realization of liberation, one must make sure it's joined by bodhicitta. So in this way, that one must understand in the path of the great vehicle, that essence of the practice, or the nature of the practice, must be the inseparability of emptiness and compassion. As such, the practice of bodhicitta being the most important, and in developing bodhicitta, what conditions must be present is essentially the twofold conditions of loving kindness and compassion. And so now if I give a brief explanation on the first one, that is loving kindness. The example would be how a good mother raises one's child. And given the possibility, these days not all the mothers are being good, in the case of a good, kind mother, and how such a mother raises one's only child. And one raises one's child with so much love, so much affection, and always concerned about the child's happiness, the child's well-being, and whatever physical, tedious, urges, activity one has to go through, however long it means, or that even if it is at the risk of one's life, that one is willing to do anything and everything for one's child, the giving of one's possessions and so forth. And so, this is talking about in the case of a good mother. And there may be others who are not particularly that good, and some even spanks one's child, whatever. So, anyway, in the case of a good mother, so we can think in that spirit of the relationship of a good mother to her only child. And in a way that we can see that we have that kind of relationship with all beings. That all beings are, you can say, our mothers, in that a great many beings have been our mothers in the past, and a great many of them are our mothers presently, and then the great many will be our mothers in the future. So in this way, in the course of the 3 times, that there's possibility that all beings are our parents, our mother, and in the relationship that we have with the kind mother that we've talked about, now who is in this suffering. So therefore, having a genuine and heartfelt wish for the happiness and well-being, and such heartfelt, and that it is to the point of being unconditionally heartfelt, and so that kind of attitude for the happiness and well-being, that is loving kindness. And having the attitude of loving kindness in a way that whether one has to give the use of one's body, one's possessions, and whatever merit, virtue one has accumulated in the course of 3 times, that one genuinely wish to use them for the benefit of beings, so that beings experience happiness and well-being. So that is developing the mind of loving kindness. And when one trains oneself again and again, consistently, in the outlook of this particular attitude of loving kindness, as a result of consistent, genuine training, that one day it is definitely possible one would have very genuine outlook of loving kindness. And it is even possible that one can have immeasurable loving kindness. And so, in this way, just as an ideally good mother does everything out of kindness to her child, in that way we also should train ourselves. And also it can be said that when a mother is so loving and so kind to her only child, she doesn't see any faults in the child. She only sees virtues. She never sees his or her faults and limitations, only good qualities. Saying, oh, my child has this kind of quality, wonderful quality, that kind of wonderful quality, education, what have you. And it is possible that through training in loving kindness, gradually, we also can begin to see that way in connection with sentient beings, that we don't see the faults and the limitation of sentient beings, that we only see the good qualities and beneficial qualities of sentient beings. And as such, when we have trained our mind in this way, and then whatever harm and harsh words are directed towards one cannot get carried away by them, or that this wouldn't harm, which means that one can bring them on the path towards training in loving kindness. And as it's said, that bringing of adverse circumstances on the path of training, so it is possible for one to do that. And so, in our world, of course, there are relationships of family relationship, parents, siblings, relatives, and friends. And when one's relatives or friends or family members are facing whatever difficulties, and there's a sort of culture generally of helping each other out, supporting in times of need, whatever is to make somebody happier, to assist in somebody's needs. So anyway, there is this sort of culture, there is the, what's happening is the habit of helping each other out. And so, from the point of view of loving kindness, we should extend this kind of attitude, the activity of helping out outside of our immediate relationships or relatives. From the point of view of that, from the Buddhist point of view, we are all related to each other, and that other beings are also, in one way or the other, at one time or the other, are our relatives, immediate or distant relatives. So in this way, when there is happiness, when there is joy that is taking place in their lives, that we should rejoice in their happiness and their well-being, and we should wish them only happiness and joy, and that in whatever way we could help support their experience of happiness and well-being, to do so. So, looking out in this way is all different support to developing the mind of loving kindness. Now, so sort of the wholesome side of it. Now, as to what stands in the way of loving kindness, or what is opposed to loving kindness, is primarily anger, aggression. While all, in general, all mental afflictions are against virtue, but hatred is the primary opposition to that of loving kindness. And this is therefore what we need to watch out for. When, as we say, the rage of the fire of anger blazes, then all wealth of virtue gets burnt away. And so, with this understanding, we need to be sort of ready, in a way, to put out the fire of aggression in order to protect loving kindness and such virtuous outlook. So in consideration of this fact, in the teachings of the Buddha, it is pointed out that even if one's attachment is as huge as a mountain, even that is not as bad as if one's anger is just a tiny speck, or for that matter, of a moment. Because a moment of anger or aggression can have more destructive influence than that of great degree of attachments. And so in this way, that basically pointing out the destructive force of anger. And I've along the training in bodhicitta, or loving kindness, one Kadampa spiritual master was approached by an elderly woman and asked him as to how to train in the mind of loving kindness. So she was told that just as one has genuine feelings of kindness and caring to one's own child, or just as good parents have genuine feelings of kindness and caring towards one's child, in that same manner that one should have it towards all beings. And so she was in a sort of state of awe to hear that this is the kind of feeling that one should have towards all beings, and that this would not be something even closely possible. But through training, that such is possible. Also, there is another incident where a certain individual had told his teacher that when he's had enough food, feels replete, and when there's nobody who's bugging him, then at such moments it is not difficult for him to have thoughts of loving kindness. So that one's training in loving kindness should not be sort of limited to such circumstances or limitations, that at all times and all circumstances that one should train in the attitude of loving kindness. Now, briefly talking about compassion, bodhicitta being that of loving kindness and compassion. Compassion, then there is those factors that support the development of compassion and those that works against the development of bodhicitta. And so first, as to what is essentially bodhicitta. Bodhicitta in essence is when noticing or seeing beings suffering, their genuine wish for their freedom from suffering. This is essentially the attitude of bodhicitta. So this is the attitude of compassion. Normally, the object of compassion is those who are in a state of despair or sadness, in whatever situation of destitute, that towards them sort of one's heart going out and feeling if they could only be free from such situations of suffering. So in cultivating the mind of compassion, it is important that this is not just an external sort of exhibition or that lip service compassion, and that it must not be for the purpose of appearance, but it must be heartfelt, that the experience is happening more in one's mind than trying to put a show of it appearance-wise. One example along this line, it is said that one yogi, or who was in the appearance of a yogi one day, that he had one goat and he felt that he wanted to kill this goat, and he wanted to have some kind of feast offering, and he wanted to have meat for this feast offering. So in this way he wanted to kill the goat, and so had pulled the goat down under his foot, and he started from the goatee or the goat's beard, and then the goat started making a great deal of noise out of pain. And then when hearing the goat's noise of pain and agony, and some of the neighbors started looking towards what was going on, and the yogi just didn't want the neighbor to know exactly what he was doing, and he started saying, oh, you know, the beard is in the way, and so it's having difficulty getting grass inside the mouth, so I'm trying to get rid of some of the beard. And so that kind of show of compassion or kindness, as if it was doing a favor to the goat, though he had something else in his mind. So in this way, that it is very much possible a lot of times that individuals have some selfish motives in mind, and yet in appearance like make it look like they are practicing kindness or compassion. It is also said sometimes in Tibet that some people would find excuse to kill older animals, saying, oh, poor thing, they're getting too old, and so best that they die, sort of in this way killing, but even though they have selfish motives in mind. So in this way, the cultivating of compassion should be witnessed by the genuineness of one's mind, not just a matter of show. It is also equally important that one's cultivation of compassion is unbiased and impartial, and cultivating it towards all beings equally, and not just self-interest based. We could say even hawks and wolves have biased compassion. They care for their own immediate ones, so that they maybe kill someone else to feed their own offsprings and so forth. So in that much we can say that even such animals care for their own kind. And so our cultivation of compassion or the expression of compassion is not for the purpose of deception, and that deceiving others in the name of compassion so that one can take care of one's family or one's spouse or whatever other people of interest. So in this way, that in essence one should train the attitude of loving kindness and compassion. Through that, then one can cultivate and train in bodhicitta. And the primary purpose of training loving kindness, compassion, and through that bodhicitta is towards the realization of the state of Buddhahood, and through the experience of Buddhahood that one could become equipped with the ability to benefit beings. And if one's mind is therefore trained properly and have gained realization through complete bodhicitta, then one's outlook towards sentient beings also should be different in the sense that one shouldn't see sentient beings from an ordinary point of view, or that from fixations as real or fixations as enemies and so forth, and should be free from such confused dualistic fixations or distorted views of beings. In connection with the true training in bodhicitta, one should be free of the various distorted fixations. As an antidote towards them is that if one can train one's mind with the attitude that one has this connection with beings as one's parents, not only as parents, but parents of much kindness and towards whom one feels tremendous gratitude, then obviously that would free one from the fixation of animosity. In the same way that the fixation of regarding beings as very ordinary beings or to beings in a way sort of to be looked down upon, then as an antidote for that is from the point of view of the sutra, it is pointed out with reason that all sentient beings without exception, regardless of their present situation, are endowed with the potential for enlightenment, this Buddha nature. And so recognizing the Buddha nature in all beings, that one should regard and respect all beings. And furthermore, from the point of view of the Vajrayana path, then one is to view everything from the point of view of pure outlook. And in that way to see all beings in the form of the deities of the celestial state of existence, and so as the mandala or the assemblage of Yidam deities. And if one is able to cultivate such understanding and outlook towards beings, then obviously this will serve as an antidote for having this fixation of inferiority of beings. Along the same line that other forms of dualistic fixations, such as clinging to others as tangible material phenomena, and the great master Gombuludup or Nagarjuna had said that be it the cycle of samsara or be it the cycle of liberation, that the nature is not separate, and that is to say, whether it's in the state of samsara or whether it's in the state of nirvana, that essentially the nature of both is emptiness. And so, that if one is able to view everything from the point of view of emptiness, then this will serve as antidote to dualistic fixation. So, with these points in mind, one should do one's best to train in loving kindness and compassion through that bodhicitta, and especially that because of the present circumstances of the world, it is extremely important for us to take the opportunity of training our mind with this outlook that the world is suffering from the lack of loving kindness, lack of compassion. There is a tremendous poverty in that sense. Poverty of absence of loving kindness and compassion. And so as practitioners of spirituality in general, and in particular that of the follower of the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, and it is very important that we do not leave the teachings to itself, that we take the opportunity of applying them into our practice so that we can act out of the realization of the teachings. So this is all for now, and so I have shared these teachings with you based on the request of the two persons, and I hope I fulfilled their wishes to some extent. And whatever virtue is accumulated through You're teaching on bodhicitta as well as whatever virtues accumulated in the course of 3 times, dedicated for the general benefit and well-beings of all sentient beings without exception, and particularly for the benefit of beings, people gathered here, so that all your spiritual aspirations become fulfilled. I've been asked by the group here to talk about guru devotion. I'm not sure it's something that I can talk about, but anyway, I will attempt to talk about the need for the proper relationship of teacher and student, and that also need for authentic relationship between authentic spiritual teacher, master, and that of authentic spiritual student. Generally, when we embark upon any activity in life, we have to know that there is situations of discernment involved as towards fulfilling that particular objective or activity. What are conditions that needs to be avoided, and what are conditions that one needs to embrace or fulfill. And obviously this is true, or more true, in terms of when one embarks upon the path of the Dharma. And in this particular connection, in relationship to connecting with authentic spiritual master. And so one needs to learn and discern as to what are the qualities and characteristics of authentic spiritual master that one needs to appreciate. What are the inappropriate qualities of a teacher, and that those who poses as teacher who have inappropriate qualities, that how we should know and avoid. And also at the same time as students, what are the qualities that we should embrace and the qualities that we should avoid so that one becomes authentic student. Now, first in addressing the qualities of an authentic spiritual master, since because of the importance of such spiritual master, both in the Sutra and Tantra, various categories and levels of explanations are made. Instructions are provided as to how to recognize authentic spiritual teacher. And so sometimes is mentioned about 8 primary qualities of an authentic teacher, sometimes 4 or 2, or any number of such combinations mentioned. So anyway, at this point in mentioning few obvious qualities of an authentic spiritual teacher, and that spiritual teacher or the Lama must be a genuine follower of the teachings of the Buddha, and that one has accomplished a good degree of learning, reflection and practice of the teaching, that one actually is oneself a genuine practitioner of the Dharma. So that is important, because these days it is very much possible that there are many who poses as spiritual teachers when in actuality one has not oneself entered on the path of the Dharma properly or accumulated the necessary achievements of a spiritual master, yet posing to be able to lead others on the path of realization. So that such is totally inappropriate, and it would only serve the purpose of fulfilling whatever personal worldly interest, and it is more like some ignorant person trying to lead someone else. So this is to be understood in this context. And when a teacher is guiding students on the path, it is not simply sufficient that one is able to help someone on the path, that the teacher or the Lama himself must have genuine interest in the Dharma, and that is a consistent practitioner. So in this way is able to lead a student on the path. Equally important for a student to realize is that one should not just connect oneself with anybody one meets in the name of a spiritual teacher, and without taking into any account as to what should be authentic characteristic of a spiritual master. And so in this was continuously attaching oneself to this teacher and that teacher, anyone that one meets. Because only when one attaches oneself to one authentic teacher in a consistent way, then that could bring benefit and that could strengthen the connection in terms of firming up one's faith and strengthening one's devotion. And so it is inappropriate and impractical to just attach oneself to any and every Lama or teacher that one encounters. Because if one does this, then there is a possibility that one attaches oneself to a teacher or so-called a teacher, and then after a while drops that connection and attaches oneself to another one and continuously doing this. And in a way, this also put oneself in a situation of fault or limitation. And down the road, given that one has the opportunity, sort of more ultimately, to connect with an authentic spiritual master, at that time, because of the continuous violations in the relationship between the many previous teachers, that this violation could make the receiving of blessings from an authentic teacher more difficult. So, given such possibilities, initially it is very important for one to be careful and to take a closer look as to making sure that one is connected with an authentic spiritual teacher and pursue that genuinely, and one is not doing this just for the purpose of just only putting on a spiritual mask or just following the flock, so to speak, of imitating others, since this would not serve one's purpose. And now, just talking briefly about the inappropriate qualities of a spiritual teacher, or what are the qualities that are opposed to an authentic spiritual master. So now, in connection with what are sort of the inappropriate qualities of a spiritual teacher, probably the example of a hand mill, in Tibet, to grind the barley into the tsampa. And normally, this is made of stone. But in certain cases that it might be just made of wood. And if it is made of wood, then it usually makes a lot of noise, yet the tsampa is very coarse. And the amount of noise it makes, the tsampa should be pretty fine, but the tsampa is very coarse. So it is possible that certain teachers could turn out like that, while keeping in mind materialistic and worldly interest in one's mind, yet outwardly making big Dharma sounds, engaging in big Dharma jargons, if you would. And so in this way, such kind of show will not be able to fulfill the benefit of others. So in this way, that one needs to sort of watch out. And similarly, in being really led on the path of the Dharma, that is, as a student, one has not been on that path, and as one has no experience of being on that path. The one who is supposed to be showing one the path is also in reality not familiar with the path, even though there is sort of the appearance or the pretension of knowing the path. So then that would not serve the purpose. Another example would be if the one who is going to guide one on a journey is someone who is crazy. So then obviously that would not serve the purpose. In the same way, a spiritual master, or one who poses as spiritual master, lacking the qualities of a spiritual master, in its place there's the limitations of pride and limitations of having heard very little in the way of Dharma and harsh or inappropriate ways of conduct, and that if one follows such spiritual master or so-called spiritual master, obviously this is actually against the Dharma, and it will only serve disservice and not any benefit.
Why?
So this is briefly about how to find true and authentic spiritual master and avoid those who lack the quality of true authentic spiritual master. And now one has to realize it is not enough that one has actually met up with authentic spiritual master. That what is also required on the part of the student is that one has the characteristic of an authentic student. And now with regard to the authentic characteristic of a student, well, there are many qualities and examples. And in terms of examples, the way that the great Mahapandita Naropa had approached his teacher Tilopa. Tilopa put Naropa through 12 major hardships and 12 lesser so-called hardship. Altogether 24 tribulations or tremendous hardship. And during all of this time, very little in the way of teaching was imparted to Naropa. But all that time, Naropa did not lose his confidence and his devotion. But in fact, his devotion was continuously increasing. And because of this steadfastness of confidence and devotion, ultimately when Tilopa started pouring the teachings, or rather giving the teachings, there was a more instantaneous realization or insight taking place in the mind of Naropa. So in this way, what this points out to us is that our approach to an authentic spiritual master should be through genuine devotion and developing into unconditional devotion. That with our body, with our life, we are able to commit ourselves to the teacher and in the service of the teacher. And so if one is able to commit oneself in this way through genuine devotion and sense of commitment and service, even if one receives only one session of teaching, even that very session of teaching can have tremendous effect in the stream of one's mind, as far as bringing a great deal of benefit and supporting insight and realization. So, as such, the pure and steadfast devotion to authentic spiritual master is what one needs to cultivate. So, in the same way, another example of the relationship of an authentic student to that of an authentic teacher is the relationship between Lord Marpa and Milarepa. As one could recall, the Marpa initially put Milarepa through tremendous hardship and made it so difficult for him. Had him build a house and then had it all again, everything fallen away, and then again making him rebuild again, then again destroying it. And so in this way, that having him build a house 4 times connected with the 4 activities, and then finally making him build the 9 storied castle. Even after all of those, having put through that hardship, which seemed actually in appearance quite harsh, and at the end of all of these, still Marpa refused to give teachings to Milarepa, and telling Milarepa that you just heap some earth and stones together, and for that you think you deserve the precious teachings that I, at the risk of my life, brought all the way from India. And so in this way, the appearance of Marpa was not what one would have liked. Very wrathful, very distant approach to the appearance, but for a purpose. And so Milarepa never lost his devotion. And as such, because of the strength of the devotion and faith of Milarepa, that once Marpa started giving him the teachings, he had the capacity to realize the state of liberation within one lifetime. And so again, this is a very, of course, particularly special example of an authentic student that appreciates an authentic spiritual master. So, that approach.
And
then now in the case of students who are not authentic in that sense, or lacking the qualities of authenticity, one such example would be the so-called Gelong Lekpe Karma, the one who was attending to the Buddha during the Buddha's lifetime. Is supposed to have attended the Buddha for 12 continuous years, and he was also known to be quite learned, and he had memorized great volumes of the sutras, the 12 categories of them, and he has even in meditation relatively accomplished a certain state of meditative stability. Yet with all of that, his outlook was just how to see the faults of the Buddha. And so he was always watching out for the faults of the Buddha. And when what you want to see is fault in your mind, then obviously it is possible for you to see faults. And so he was always seeing faults in the Buddha. So if one can even see faults in the Buddha, needless to say that how one should be able to very easily see faults in other individual, ordinary or individual spiritual teachers. And so in this way, keeping this in mind, it is important that as a student one should be looking for the beneficial qualities and the wholesome qualities in a spiritual teacher, and not looking simply targeting or looking for what faults that one can see in a spiritual teacher.
Tajidang Lome Lama Dizu Tolia, Mambuchi Share Yobarede, and do Durachi Shabaina, and da Tudado Gary Shining. That the Tudado Gary Shining be Shella, Jebe goes in the Yani be Gary Shining Shella.
So now in terms of as to how an authentic student approaches or follows an authentic spiritual master, that given that one has connected oneself with an authentic spiritual master to whom one has also feelings of devotion, then it is extremely important that one consistently takes the opportunity of looking at the countenance of the teacher time and again. And since this opportunity is rare to come about, and that also through a very genuine, respectful appearance on one's part. And at the same time, when the Lama or the spiritual master, given that one is connected with an authentic spiritual master, when this teacher engages in scolding or being critical of one, that one should not resort to anger or resentment as one might do otherwise. And so in this way, that even under such circumstances, and actually it is pointed out that at such times that one's reaction should be that like that of a dog, is that if a dog is scolded, firstly not understanding the language, wouldn't know what's being said, and in other words, that wouldn't respond with anger and resentment and so forth. This way, that one should not respond with anger or resentment.
Chigi Telo Namaso, and Tindetolia, this Chasa, Kisi Bena, Pebeg Lamatizu, Capino Nayobina, and Pebeg Huyomara, that is Dusana, Capina Bine, Gadusha Yongumares, the Dusane, and Tizitolia, this Charles Santo, and Anna Singi, Gadu.
So, well, maybe one benefit that non-Tibetan speaking students have is that when the Tibetan teacher calls them, they wouldn't understand what he's saying and so wouldn't have to feel bad. Now, in terms of how to approach in the way of an authentic student is during the time of Marpa, for the sake of Dharma, for the sake of connecting with authentic spiritual master, took that long and arduous journey to India. At any cost, there is something that he wanted to do, like as if he was in a boat, which is another way of saying that the boat itself won't get tired. Now, of course, times are different. There's all kinds of forms of transportations available. We have motor vehicles and airplanes and so forth. So one doesn't have to put one's body as such through such urges or difficult journeys. But anyway, the point is that if that is what it would take, that as an authentic student, that one should do so, go through whatever length of difficulties a journey in being able to receive the guidance of authentic spiritual master. And again, the example that is pointed out is that the spiritual teacher is to be looked at as the physician, and the conflicting emotions and the source of sufferings as an illness. And with that illness, one must turn to the physician, and then the physician of the spiritual teacher, for the purpose of treating one's illness of suffering and conflicting emotions. And then when one tends to a physician, for instance, one has to follow the prescribed instructions. And so in this way, that with the spiritual master as the physician of the Dharma, that when the teacher explains to one how, in order to become free from the sufferings of samsara, the illness of conflicting emotions, how one must apply the medicine of the Dharma, and how one could become free or become liberated from the suffering, then one needs to attend to it correctly as one has been instructed. Like if one does not follow the instruction in taking medical treatment of the physician, then it is also possible sometimes that the medicine work against one because one is not following the instructions. So in this way, that whatever it is that one is supposed to give up and whatever it is that one is supposed to embrace, in accordance with the instruction of the spiritual master, to heal the sufferings of mental afflictions, one must tend to so. Well, this is all I have to say for now. And besides, the time is up. Now you can ask questions. I will take 5 questions.
I had a question about 2 things you said in the talk. On the one hand, you said it's important to take time to find a right teacher, because if we just choose one teacher without being careful, maybe we lose trust and we change many teachers, and this is a problem. On the other hand, you said that it's important when you have a teacher to see the positive qualities of the teacher, but not to look at the negative qualities. But isn't that part of our task when we try to find a true teacher, to look at all the qualities to see, make sure we find a correct teacher?
Oh yes, so you are trying to get into debate with me, trying to bring some logic into this situation. Anyway, when I ponder as to what the Buddha has taught concerning authentic teacher, it is pointed out in the teaching that in the tantras, in the sutras, in essence, that one should first examine a spiritual teacher thoroughly, learning about what should be the authentic qualities of spiritual teacher, and if a spiritual teacher embodies those qualities, taking it into account, and the examination should precede the relationship. And through having checked out, one sees quite well, or the clear indication that is a true teacher and has all the qualities of an authentic spiritual master. And at that time, when you connect yourself with such a teacher, and in the course of the relationship, when the teacher manifests faults or limitations, one does not see them as faults. and one sees them only as virtue.
So in
this way, that maybe sort of the where we draw the line would be after one has examined the spiritual teacher and found as an authentic teacher and made the connection, then after that whether one sees faults or not depends on whether one has developed complete confidence and trust or not.
Thank you for so many teachers. I guess my question is in regards to empowerments with teachers and taking empowerments from teachers other than your guru. What would someone say the guidelines for when to take and when not to take?
There are different possibilities in that certain empowerments one can receive from any number of teachers, and certain empowerments it would be best that one receives from one's principal teacher or master. Generally, it should be understood that one receives empowerment from teachers who have the ability to give empowerments, or have themselves equipped with the necessary qualifications to be able to give empowerments. So there could be different circumstances, not exclusively one way or the other. For instance, the principal root lama of Marpa was Naropa, and he received empowerments from Naropa. But for certain empowerments, Naropa suggested Marpa to go and receive them from Metripa. So just as it is not necessary that one receive all the Vajrayana empowerments from one's root lama exclusively.
It is said that one should check his Guru or the Lama one would like to consider his Guru for at least 12 years. That is a very long period, and if one practices Vajrayana, that means one cannot start Vajrayana practice before 12 years. And is it that there is any teacher that would be exempted from this rule?
Sorry?
Are there any teachers in Vajrayana tradition that would not have to be checked for 12 years, that one could relate and consider a root guru earlier?
Okay.
That is more in the context of the longest possible time that one can examine the authenticity of a spiritual teacher. And it is not that one must wait until one has spent 12 years examining authenticity of a Vajrayana spiritual master. The point that is being made here is, since the spiritual master, particularly the Vajrayana spiritual master, is so important and of a critical importance in one's spiritual development, and for present benefit and for ultimate benefit, that even if one has to examine the authenticity of the spiritual master, as long as even 12 years, if it takes even as long as 12 years for one to do it, because of its great importance. So that is the point here, not that the 12 years is sort of a fixed time period for everyone. So it is not necessary that it has to take a long time, and that it is possible that sometimes it doesn't even take a couple of years, or for them at a few months, in order to be able to connect with an authentic spiritual teacher. For example, in the case of Karmapa, by the power of the truth of past connections and so on, that just simply through hearing the name of Milarepa, that one's hair rising on end and one's heart feeling the tremendous devotion and yearning, So even in a matter of moments that one could get a sense of the authenticity of spiritual master and therefore the confidence for connection. So how long or short a time it takes is not a sort of fixed situation. It depends from situation to situation.
Your Holiness, thank you for teaching. I had two questions. Once a student has developed some devotion to their guru, it seems like it's very critical in terms of the balance of being around the teacher and not being around the teacher. Could you comment on that? If there's sort of a rule. And the other is, what is the best way to be of service to one's guru, both in regular, everyday world and also perhaps in practice?
Well, again, this also depends on particular situations. That is, given that one is connected with an authentic spiritual master, that in relating to that spiritual master, and because since one is an ordinary being, not free of obscuration of mental afflictions, and the possibility of obstacles as a result of such, sometimes it is possible that as a result of these mental afflictions serving as obscurations, one can see the faults of one's spiritual teacher. So that when one's yearning and confidence is strong to be around the spiritual teacher, and when one begins to see the possibility of seeing fault, then the distancing oneself in this way, that maybe one can sort of maintain the relationship. There is not a set rule as to when to be around and when not to be around. So my personal take on this is that when you are about to or just beginning to see faults in the authentic spiritual master that you have connected with, then it's time to run away. Just as I had run away from Tibet, escaped from Tibet quite far away. Well, in terms of serving one's teacher, that serving one's teacher does not necessarily amount to always being around the teacher and following each step of the teacher this way and that way, and pouring tea and whatever else. That's not necessarily the idea of serving the teacher. Serving the teacher essentially is what the spiritual teacher has imparted to one and trusted one with the spiritual instructions. And so this is what one needs to apply, regardless of where one is, regardless of what time phase that one is, applying under all circumstances and situations, and not sort of forgetting to apply the teachings, the practice. So the greatest service is through one's practice. And making offerings of material things or monetary offerings, what have you, this is good for one to do, but such forms of material offerings are regarded as inferior forms of offering. And the most superior offering is the offering of one's practice. And in that way, also among service, the best service is serving through the fulfillment of one's practice.
Thanks for your teaching. I'd like to ask a question. Is the quality of the teacher determined absolutely? Each teacher has their own name. Each teacher has their own nature, and each student has their own nature. So I think it would say do happen for some students, some teachers are good. In other cases, other teachers are good for some students.
오늘
Yes, it may be true that it's not simply enough the spiritual teacher is authentic and the student has all the authentic characteristics of a student. That even when these two are present, that in many cases that is not enough, but there needs to be also certain karmic connections. In the case of Milarepa, for instance, that initially he went to a new teacher who had the quality of an authentic spiritual teacher. And Milarepa had tremendous devotion and a student of great yearning, but lacking the condition of the karmic connection, that it did not serve the purpose of their having the relationship as student and teacher. So that condition of karmic connection also has a role.
Maje banan je jo je ba jamba me ba dan gon ne gon do am je da do don je da sar jo ba de da kun je mo lam do da ye ne dong ga zim je da je jo ka ba je wa zai che den de je jo Dorje jaje de lo naro da ma ba me la che je Karmapa de su shi sha gu je Karmapa che shi ju je ju ba zhen de da zo so ba de lo ba zo sa lam ja ya je la nga ni be nya me dong ge da bo ge ye la so an de so ge ye la ju ba zhen no nam dar chin je lo shen lo gong je ga ba so ma shi sen ro ge la sa shi san de de da che be gong je la ni gu ru she ba me ba sin je la mo ge gong je ngo ro myang a de wo je be la ma la jin do so an de be go Jimmy Yavrajin Yellow, Jimmy Gunjang, Hashrado Bang, Somalia, Major Dagarajabe, Gojalo, and Overajin Yellow, Nandong, Jayama, Jayala, Manga, Overajave, Konde Yemi, Overajin Yellow, Java, Gudoyanda, Lamada, Damichi, Sadala, Jay, Dero, Jangi, Gomba, Yodo. Tangi, Trinley.
Today, I would like to briefly talk about the essence of the Buddhist teaching. As essence of the Buddhist teaching falls into the twofold learning, knowledge aspect of it, and practice or realization aspect. And the knowledge aspect is through a process of listening and learning, and then the realization aspect is through practice. So This time the primary focus is on the practice aspect, and for the practice aspect is while the Buddha has taught vast body of practice, 84,000 different aspects of the practice of meditation, but all of these vast body of teachings essentially fall into the two category of SHINAY practice of calm abiding and LHAGTONG practice of insight. And so out of these two, the first one, the SHINAY practice of calm abiding, is for the purpose of contemplation as well as for the purpose of meditation, so that through this method of practice one can bring about the development of one-pointedness of mind. In the practice of SHINAY meditation also there are various different classifications or stages. For instance, SHINAY practice with support, and that is an object of focus, and SHINAY practice without support. And the more refined aspect of SHINAY without any reference point whatsoever, more abiding in the calm state of mind. So there are various different aspects of the SHINAY practice. For beginning practitioners, SHINAY with object is recommended, and that is using various different objects to anchor the mind, be it a piece of object like a point or dot, or for that matter a piece of stick or whatever object. I understand in the Japanese tradition of this particular meditation, doing of a painting, for instance, or the tea ceremony, or that archery and so forth, also use as object, that is object for maintaining the one-pointedness of the focus of mind. So in this way, that being the purpose, whatever object for that matter serves the purpose of helping one maintain the one-pointedness of one's mind, and so that is SHINAY with object.
And demig shenel chaso ba ine ya sang ju ne de ting zi ge ge dole so ma na xin che che ne ane rang yi le ya thwe ge ko ane ting zi ge do.
The other aspect is that having the support within one's mind, and which is also sometimes referred to as SHINAY without support, in that support is not external to oneself, internal to oneself, as it is pointed out in such texts as the Tingzin Gyalpo Samadhiraj Sutra, mentioned that within one's heart or mind, bringing a glowing, radiant image of the Buddha, and then maintaining the focus with it, which is not sort of external to oneself in the sense. So anyway, through maintaining the object being trained in consistent one-pointedness of mind, if one is able to do that consistently, then one will also gradually experience the benefit of such, which is the calm abiding experience of mind and stability of mind, and various gross and subtle thought discrepancies that takes place, and subsiding of such, and so on, so that one could have these benefit at one's disposal. So in the SHINAY experience, basically the focus being the one-pointedness of mind through that calm abiding experience of mind, more stability, and therefore that the wisdom aspect, the clarity aspect of the possibility of mind is not highlighted. And so this, after SHINAY, in the LHAGTONG practice of insight, then also the focus shifts to such qualities of the mind as to highlighting wisdom and the clarity aspect of mind. So in that way, of course, LHAGTONG practice meditation, or Vipassana as it is called, is superior over that of SHINAY shamatha practice. So then, as far as the Vipassana insight or the LHAGTONG practice of meditation, the approach to that from the point of view of the middle way is that one approaches it through applying the use of form and formlessness. Form is in reference to all external phenomena of materiality, and all external phenomena of materiality and existing in whatever composite forms is basically the compositions of whatever interdependent particles. And through the scrutiny of mind and discernment, that all of these interdependently existing composite manifestation of phenomena can be divided further and further into the subtlest possible materiality of reference point. And even that viewing that subtlest possible reference, even that only can exist interdependently, and therefore they lack the truth of substantial existence. So in this way, that bringing to the possibility of non-referential nature of any entity, fundamentally speaking, because of their interdependent existence. So in terms of external material phenomena, this is how one can approach. And now talking about formless, this is in reference to mind. And as for the mind is concerned, that if through wisdom and through the ability of discernment one probes into the nature of mind, and again the mind lacks the truth of existence, any sort of referential existence, and then the mind operates in relationship to time, and so there's no trace of past mind, and just sort of disappeared in the expanse of space. There's no trace of past mind, and to talk of future mind is yet to come into existence, so it is not happening. As for the present and what we call present, that can be divided, shall we say, into so many segments, if you would, and there isn't really present of mind that exists, that has the truth of existence. So in this way, the mind also fundamentally lacks the truth of existence. And not only that, but the scrutinizer, or the wisdom that discerns the non-referential existence of phenomena, and that of mind in itself, upon further probing, lacks the truth of existence, and therefore that everything lacking the truth of innate referential existence, and so resting, if you could call it, in that non-referential outlook. And His Holiness is using the example of when you rub two pieces of wood against each other, and through the power of the friction and heat and fire produce simultaneously. Not quite sure how that fits in this context, but that this producing of heat and fire you cannot separate, and disappearance of it also you cannot separate. So in this way, that all things existing interdependently, and no object, no phenomena, be it material or non-material, tangible object, intangible mind, lacks the truth of fundamental existence. So, if one is able to approach the LHAGTONG meditation practice properly, then the view of egolessness, the view of emptiness, altogether, through the power of the wisdom of LHAGTONG insight, can be realized. One can break insight into it, and which, in also in other words, if one, through the LHAGTONG practice, accomplish the realization of egolessness, or that of the truth of emptiness, obviously this means uprooting of all source of sufferings, which is mental afflictions and habits of mental defilements, could all become consumed and totally uprooted, and the state of, therefore, perfect liberation without any blemishes of defilements can be experienced as a result of that pure, pristine wisdom can be realized through the LHAGTONG practice meditation.
His Holiness will now take 3 questions. Is there a way for your inherent Buddha nature to spontaneously liberate itself without a teacher?
As it is clearly pointed out by Lord Gambopa in the Ornament of Liberation, that while the potential for enlightenment or Buddha nature is inherent as a potential of the mind of all beings without exception, nevertheless, this potentiality could not be brought forth to realization without the support of the guidance of spiritual master. It is pointed out very clearly. So I guess that without the support and guidance of spiritual master, that the Buddha nature on its own would not come to awakening from whatever obscurations. Nevertheless, given that individual or individuals through practice have reached the final stage of insight and realization and a liberation from cyclic existence, the final level, at such particular point, maybe without much in the way of aid of spiritual friend, that one could then on one's own experience the unfolding of whatever remaining possibility of enlightened outlook. As much as that is possible, but generally speaking, no.
Like in the case of Siddhartha, for example?
Yes. It's not that historically said that he approached any particular Buddhist spiritual master, but having accumulated the necessary foundation basis of the merit for so many eons, the final stage, there not being the need particularly.
Your Holiness, can you please compare the merit accumulated by supporting others during a retreat, by either sponsoring retreatants or cooking and cleaning for them, compared with that accumulated merit of actually doing the 3-year retreat?
Well, as Jitun Milarepa had said, that the retreatant in the cave and the benefactor down in the valley supporting, may there be the auspicious condition of realizing enlightened minds simultaneously. So there is that possibility in that if the practitioner in the mountains or in the cave is an authentic practitioner and is having effective insight and realization, and certain individuals have the good fortune to support that kind of situation with wholehearted commitment, and the retreatant making heartfelt dedications for the benefit of beings in general, and particularly the one supporting one through the power of the connection, and that the benefactor can accumulate enormous merit, definitely sowing the necessary conditions of the seed for liberation. So there is that possibility, but one can never draw any conclusion, because the circumstances needs to be taken into account, the situations is to be taken into account, motivations, attitude of the practitioner, of the supporter. These are conditions that would determine as to how things go about. So sometimes it is possible that the supporter of the benefactor has the highest and most pure motivation and therefore accumulate tremendous merit, whereas that may not be so true of the practitioner, and reversed is also equally true.
What advice does Your Holiness have for Western practitioners who are very, very busy with their daily lives to deepen their practice? What are some simple techniques that may be used to help gain diligence?
Yes, many people in the West want more becoming spiritually inclined, but yes, caught up in the business of life. That is definitely the situation. But what I feel is that it is not, in a way, so much how much time you are able to spend for practice, but more how effectively are you able to spend time for practice. That is, it is not sufficient that one is spiritually inclined. One has clear understanding of the essential points of the Dharma, in connection with what one needs to assimilate with one's mind, and being able to target on it in a very effective way. And so if one is able to do that, I don't feel that having a lot of time is not necessarily the key factor, or not having it is a disadvantage. And on the other hand, that among Tibetans or the other practitioners on the side, that all of their lives they are within the Dharma, but nevertheless there is also not much in the way of indication of great change or transformation, development taking place. So if one is able to use the Dharma to effectively tame and train one's mind, and that is what serves the purpose. And so in this way, if that is really happening, then even if the body and the speech have the appearance of being busy, and that appearance should not hinder the affect the mind. Rather, if it doesn't affect the mind, then it should be okay. So in this way, the best obviously seems is to work on the lojong practice of mind training. These are very clear and simple and compact practices to do, and keeping in mind the need to be mindful of all activities, so-called the 4 activities of one's life. And so if one tends to it with mindfulness and apply the lojong training, that probably is most effective.
This is the Tibetan and English translation. Ogyen lokpar de pyoke dang inji ke nika shugi.